Okay, welcome in everyone. Welcome in. This is take two. Thank you for whoever joined live. Come back in now. Come back in. Um, all right, so we are just going to wait for the wonderful Philippa Wilkin to join us. So come on in, everyone. This is take two. Come and say hello. Have you been out in the sunshine? I have been out in the sunshine today. I'm a little bit red on the shoulders and here it's like, oops, I could have done with a bit more sun cream. Anyway, just Philippa's here. Hi, Philippa, come on in. I think you just have to request to be in the video. So come and request. And then I can hopefully just accept you in. I'm so excited for today's live, everyone. So no sound, 1 sec. Okay, this is so funny because I was literally just talking about Mercury retrograde. I don't know if anyone else notices it, but any kind of tech stuff and things around communications go a little bit wonky. So we've got a request. Here she comes. Go. This is actually the first time I've done this, so fingers are crossed. Okay, here she comes. There she is.
Hello.
Philippa, how are you?
Camera so that it's just my little noggin.
Oh, yeah, no, adjust what you need to so we can see you and your beautiful face. How are you doing?
My head. Top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit up a little bit on the chair. That's better. Then you can properly see me.
Yeah, we
Hi.
can see you properly. Brilliant. How are you doing?
Bring you closer. That's scary, isn't it?
I know. I've just realised I probably need to lean back a bit as well. I'm like, hello.
Hello. We're here.
We're here. We made it. I'm so excited to be doing this. I was just like, been waiting to get you on actually because I had this idea. We talked about it a little while ago, and I was like, I really want to speak to Phil. We're going to get you live and share your breathwork story. And we've picked like the hottest, sunniest day for it. Have you been outside today? I'm guessing, of course, you have.
I've been at a vintage fair all afternoon, but I had like the biggest hat on. My Mexican hat. I was just, even though I've still got the sun, but yeah, as you say, it's roasting. I'm not complaining though.
I'm not either, exactly. I'm like, I've got a lot more sun than I planned to, but I'm good for that. So, yeah,
Got my
absolutely.
Brazilian dress on as well.
I saw that. It's so good. So I was literally just going to do your introduction as you came in, but you're here now, so we'll do it because we'll wait for a few more people. There's a few more people that have joined us live. So
Hello.
welcome in. Ah, Maliki, hello, lovelies. Lovely to have you live with us.
Hello,
Um,
everybody.
So welcome in everyone if you are joining us live or if you are watching on the replay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to bring you this live today. So my name is Jessie. I'm the founder of Phoenix Breathwork and Wellbeing. And last week I started this live series by introducing myself and my story and journey with breathwork. How I found it, what led me on the journey, and what brought me to where I am now. And if you've watched it, it's saved in the IGTs if you haven't, but if you watched it, I mentioned that I was connected with a lady via contacts we both had in Brazil who was a breath worker or breath coach. And she invited me to her breathwork class workshop. And that is my first ever breathwork experience that I had. And that lady was Philippa. So Philippa actually did introduce me to breathwork. And then we both moved back to Brazil at the same time, and I continued going to her workshops. And then it was Philippa who organised a seminar out in Brazil, which is like the first week of the breathwork training. And that is where I had some incredible breakthroughs and made the decision to train in breathwork. So, you know, you're my first link to breathwork, Phil, and I'm so happy to have you here because I think you've also got an incredible story, and I just want you to share that with everyone and just talk about, you know, your journey with breath. Anything and everything you want to share, we would love to hear from you. So I'm going to hand it over, my love, all yours.
It's made me a bit tearful actually, just with that introduction, because it just takes me back. Firstly to, I guess, being in Brazil and, like you say, just the magical journey of those experiences and the seminar and everything else that and our journey together over the last few years as well, and seeing what's changed for you in that time. Because I think people really underestimate the power of some of these practices when they're done in the right, space and with the right support and the right way. Is that if anybody takes anything from this, and I know there's some people here that are already familiar with breathwork, but is that how much your life can change and how you can take your power back and create a new reality for yourself with the tools and physiology that's right under your nose. Like right here, there's nothing else that you need to have that shift, transformation, miracle, whatever it is, to put you on a completely new trajectory. Like you're not stuck where you are. It might feel difficult, it might feel challenging, it might feel overwhelming, whatever's going on in your life right now. It might feel great, it might feel expansive, or whatever it is, but just to know that it is possible to change that in a heartbeat really, really is. And I think we will probably both, be able to speak testament to that and how powerful breath work is. But it's something that if anybody here has like not worked with Jessie or done anything kind of like either online or in person, like this is firstly, I would just say, just try it, because until you do, some of the things that we can sometimes talk about, it's like, oh, that sounds nice. But until you actually physically do some of these practices, you don't get it, because it is a very physical experience. And I guess, yeah, that's just the simplicity of it just overwhelms me every time when I see somebody that goes into a beautiful breathwork session and comes out and just has this shift, or they have this energy about them that they didn't have before, and all of these like possibilities and potentials that they couldn't even comprehend before. And it was all right here. And if you can't see my hand, I'm pointing to my chest and my heart. Like, it's all here, guys. There's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to be but inside of yourself, because that's where all of the answers lie. And that's the great thing, right? Is I introduced you to breath work in that sense, or like, let's say the universe put us together.
Yeah, so
that's what I
grateful.
also believe.
Yeah.
And now you've gone on to, to bring that to the world in your own unique way as well, like through your own healing journey and personal development journey and expansion journey. Now you're doing your own unique thing in the world as a result of just leaning in and trusting and seeing where it might take you, not really knowing.
Yeah, that's it. And it's trusting, isn't it? It's just allowing yourself, like you said, right here, coming back to that and trusting it and allowing yourself to be guided, because it's exactly everything that you just said as well. It's a coming back to self. That's how I really think of it. It's a real coming back to self. And it's one of those things that you do just have to try, because the idea of these stories is because I want people to hear how it's impacted so many people's lives in different ways, but you won't know for you until you just give it a go. And I don't think there's anyone I've spoken to who hasn't been surprised, because they're like, that wasn't what I expected. Because you can always go into something with a bit of an expectation, especially if you do hear different people's experiences, but it's until you actually try it, it's just kind of like uncovering what's there and unlocking it even. So 100% agree.
Oh, I'm still tearful. I think it's, just 7 years now. I think, 7 years since I found this work, and just the feeling of gratitude, I think, for the fact that we can breathe, and we can shift, and we can change, and we can live our life in a way that's in alignment with that. And that's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Emotional. It's quite unusual.
Take us back 7 years then, Phil. Take us back 7 years to what you were doing then, who you were, and how did you first come across breathwork?
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to start. So it was literally 7 years ago, a couple of weeks ago at the end of May, which is 26th of May.
So it's
And
literally just been 7 years. Wow.
yeah, and it was on my birthday. I remember it really distinctly because I'd known about this form of breath work, transformational breath, as it was at the time, and for a number of years. And I had decided finally that I was going to try it out, and I booked to go to the Mind Body Spirit show, I think it was, at Earl's Court. And I distinctly remember it because it was like the wettest, horriblest weekend for a bank holiday. You know, typically around my birthday, it's always crappy weather in the UK. And I remember traipsing all the way down from like Islington to Earl's Court, I think it was, in the rain, like in the cold rain at the end of May. And I went to this workshop with Alan Dolan, who some of you here know who Alan Dolan is, who was an amazing breathwork facilitator also. And he was holding a workshop. And there were about, I think, probably 40 people in the room, something like that. And it was a couple of hours long. So it was an introductory workshop. And during that breathwork session, and I'll talk about a little bit more the lead up to that in a moment, but the breathwork session itself for me was quite a physical experience. I felt like when we actually lay down to do the breathwork itself, I had lots of energy moving. I had kind of tingly fingers and toes. I had like some pain in my knee or my hip, I think it was, that I hadn't really had before. I was like, oh, what's going on? My mouth wanted to do this. I was like trying to breathe through my mouth, as you'll be familiar with. And my mouth wanted to close and all of this kind of stuff going on. I was like, okay, this is weird. This is interesting. So my first breathwork session was a really physical experience. It was at the end of the session, then when people were sharing their other experience, and obviously during the session itself, I could hear what was going on, and there were people crying, there were people laughing, they were having, you know, big emotional releases, all of this kind of stuff. And so from that moment on, it just really intrigued me. I just knew that there's something in this work that I need to go and explore for myself. And by that time, I was at that time I was working in the insurance industry, and I've done that for a number of years, for over 10 years. And a couple of years before that point, I'd had what I would probably call like a bit of a midlife crisis, or a quarter life crisis, I think you would call it. And many, many things kind of happened, the perfect storm to begin to crack me open to life. And up until that point, I was quite numb. I wouldn't really know how to deal with my emotions. I just kind of stuff everything down and put it away. And that was just a coping mechanism. I didn't really know what else to do, but that ended up resulting in, you know, the end of a relationship and a very painful period in my life where I started to seek some answers about, you know, why am I here? What am I here to do? Is this really my work and job? And do I want to live like this? And it just kind of went on and on. So I got cracked open, loads of questions, not very many answers, just more and more questions. And I started at that point in time doing things like yoga and meditation, mainly to keep myself sane at that time. Because I was really overwhelmed. There was a lot of stuff going on. And I just didn't have the coping strategies and mechanisms, you know? Yeah. And so that then led me to, I was practicing yoga a couple of times a week, Reiki, different things that I was finding along the way. I'd engaged with a talk therapist, I think during that time as well, probably for about a year or so at that time. So I was already on my kind of path of really getting to know myself for the first time as an adult, after being also in a relationship for 8 or 9, you know, it was 8 years. So that was where I landed at the workshop, having started to open up and have these different experiences and start to deal with my baggage from the past, you know, whereas before I was really, really scared of it. I was numb to it as well, so I didn't really feel it. But I think principally that was because I was scared of what was there. You know, we all have this feeling, I think, and particularly in British culture, which is, oh, there's skeletons in the closet, I don't want to go there.
Yeah, 100%. Let's just keep that locked away. We can just ignore it. You know, like the ostrich, bury your head in the sand, carry on. It's not there. It's not there. Yeah.
Or the British stiff upper lip, you know, I'm fine, everything is fine. When you're really upset or you're boiling with anger or whatever it is, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. And as we know from what we now, you know, share and teach, is that emotional energy gets stuck. You know, where we really don't allow ourselves to to feel and express those emotions that are coming up as and when they're coming up, it causes a whole heap of havoc in our bodies and our lives. If not now, further down the path, it is going to come to some unfortunate climax, and then we're going to have to be in a position to deal with things, you know? And I got to that point, and so I was beginning to unravel things. And that was really at the same time when I then came across breathwork. I was also really in a space where I knew I needed to quit my career and my job, my insurance job. You know, I had a very successful, as you did, job in the city. I ran a multi-million-pound portfolio, all of that kind of fancy jazz, if you want to call it that. And I just had a calling, having been to Brazil earlier that year, that I needed to go and live in Brazil. And so that combined, you know, that first breathwork experience. After that, I actually signed up to a program in the UK, which was the equivalent of a seminar we talk about, but it was done over 3 weekends, and that was in the UK, and that was later on in the October. But from that one workshop, I had signed up to the first little part of the training, the first weekend of training. And it really went from there. I was just like, oh, this is just, you know, something I don't know. As you were saying earlier, it's like this trusting that I'm following what's in front of me, I'm following what I'm shown, and I'm going to investigate what this is.
And that's really powerful. I just want to like highlight how powerful that is as well, because like you said, you're working in insurance, really successful role. That's what you've been doing. That's your career. That's what, you know, and then you have this feeling or this calling, like you say, to do something else. And it's like you said, there were so many other things happening in your life that you'd already started to pay more attention within, started to focus on within. So would you say, you know, after that first breath workshop, that's what, you know, led you to then book onto something else to know more? What was it that triggered you, or I don't know, trigger's the right word, but prompted you, or, you know, what was that? Is it this knowing? Is it something else? Is it?
Yeah, good question, actually. I'd known, if I look back, when I was doing my insurance career, which I, you know, was very successful at, but I fell into it after university. You know, I just happened to fall into it and be very successful. And I just see one of my ex-colleagues has joined. I don't know if he's still here. Steve, hello, Steve. I was in that insurance marketplace, and I had thought for a number of years, what is my real job? What do I really want to do? What should I be doing as a person here on earth, right? And what continued to come through to me was helping other people. And it was like the healing profession. So I thought about, should I go and be a physiotherapist or retrain, you know, on nursing or osteopathy or chiropractic, or, you know, one of these kind of professions that is involved in healing, essentially. And throughout the years, I'd always pushed it to the back of my mind, because I didn't essentially want to go and do a university degree training, you know, another 3 years back at university and study to be a nurse or whatever. So I always knew in the back of my mind that my vocation would be working with other people, would be helping and supporting other people in some way. And then when I happened to come across breathwork, it just felt like, oh, this is something I need to explore. And I think hopefully a lot of people here can resonate with that. It's like, even if we know it's scary, even if, and it, you know, for this example, breathwork it was scary and it wasn't scary. That's maybe another thing that we talk about. But there was just a part of me that knew. It was just a part of me that, yeah, you've been thinking about this for a while. Just go and do it. You know, book onto the first 2 days or whatever it was. Go and see what it's about. You know, you've only had one experience, so how do you know until you try? And for me, over that period of time, I think I was very open, I was very curious, and I was also very, very much connected with, yeah, this is the next thing, and trusting my intuition, which I'd learned to squash, which I'd learned over the years to, you know, go to more rational thinking and logic and A plus B equals C type thinking, particularly working in finance, right? Because there's certain ways that we do things, certain ways that we do things in the business world that lead us to think in certain ways.
Yeah.
But life isn't linear, as we know now.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. Like you said, going from A to B. And it's like, okay, if you go through education, after you leave education, you get a job, you do this, you follow steps, and you're in a successful career. So what's wrong with that? You know, what else could you be looking for? This is where you're meant to be. So the fact that you could listen to that little something that was like, no, there's more. No, there's more. And then, you know, you talk about how you followed the guidance. Oh, this is next, or this is next. You know, would you say that was getting stronger? Like, were you trusting it more? How was, when you say you were just following what you were supposed to do next?
Yeah. I think intuition is a really interesting thing. Trusting when we talk about our gut instinct, or, you know, our inner knowing, or whatever you want to call it, a lot of us are distrustful of it because we've never really learned to utilize it. We've been conditioned from such a young age, the majority of people, to actually not trust our intuition. We've been invalidated so many times, unfortunately, as children, or we've been gaslit or told opposite stories. You know, even something like the tooth fairy or Santa Claus, as innocuous as it might sound, you know, we are lying to our children and making things up. At some point, those lies get taken down. Right? And then there's this kind of, you know, what do you do with that? And I'm not here to talk about parenting, but these types of things, that disconfirming experiences, or we have our reality denied. You know, when we are sad or upset, or we're in pain, and we have, oh, there, it's fine, stop crying. So all of this for me goes to shutting us down and shutting down our natural connection to our feelings and sensations in our body, that automatically tell us, if we're attuned to them, what is right or what is next for us, and also what is not for us, right? But where we become detuned and numbed out and living in the world of what I would call like high beta brainwaves, which is this kind of thinking intellect world, like who's the cleverest person, right? Who can hold the most facts and information? We get away from this body knowing, we get away from this physical, like, pull or push towards or away from something that is naturally there underneath the surface. But for me, intuition or knowing is like, it's like going to the gym and building that muscle. You first need to start. If you don't have a baseline, if you're not sure what to trust, if you're not sure if your intuition is working or not, you have to begin somewhere, and you have to begin to make some decisions and get some feedback. So I think that's often where people get a little bit like caught up about it. It's like, oh, what if I make the wrong decision? Well, no, you're going to make a decision based on what you feel is the right thing, and then you're going to get feedback. You know, you win or you learn.
It's keeping it that simple, though. You're absolutely right, because you can get caught up in, if I do this, then this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. You can get carried away, and then you just feed that fear and keep yourself where you are. Whereas if you can just go, okay, I'll try it and see what happens. You know, if it works the way I thought it might, great. If it doesn't, that's still great, because I'm not where I was, and I can either go back if I'd rather, or keep going and try something different. So I 100% support that. It's like, just start, trust that, and take a little action. You know, Philippa and I have both made transitions out of our corporate jobs into something different. You don't have to do that. You just start exploring, start looking, start, you know, trying things, start the expansion and start to open up, and then see what comes. It's like breaking right down, isn't it? I am so guilty of this, and I have so many coaches have said to me in the past, you know, life is not a straight line, Jess. Life is not a straight line. You will not get from A to B in a straight line. It's going to go like this. You know, you've just got to go with the flow. And it's a constant surrender for me as well. So yeah, it's so nice to just talk about that and say, that's same for everyone. You don't think life is how you think it should be. Life is how you feel it should be. Does that make sense? I don't even know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's about coming back into your feeling, right? Feeling body, felt body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the majority of us, let's face it, and this is me included, it's really challenging.
Mm.
It's really challenging. It's like one of the most challenging things you can do because, firstly, our societies are judgmental and shaming of emotion and feelings. Somebody having a panic attack is like shaking. People don't want to see that. They want to shut that down. They want to kind of make it better, right? Well, actually, panic attack in that sense of like physical shaking is releasing all of the energy associated with fear, and that is a good thing. So
Yeah.
we live in these straitjackets, but as you say, like coming back to feeling and the body sensation, and that's why breath work is my medicine and my message, because I need to be reminded of it as much as anybody else, right? Is that when we do, yeah, when we do come back here, it can be overwhelming to feel our emotions. It can be overwhelming to feel the sensations in our bodies, because either we're not accustomed to what that is and what's happening, or at some point it was bad or it was wrong, or we were going to get punished. Oh, sorry. I don't know if we've just been talking over each other. I was talking and then you were paused.
Oh, yeah,
Did you,
I
what
was
did you hear? Did you
reconnecting.
hear what I was saying?
Yeah, no, I did. And it's absolutely right. And I also loved what you said just before that as well. It's about how your breath is your medicine, and if we are in that cycle, then we are going to continue feeding it, those fears. The more we practice that, what we've learned, the more we practice it, the stronger that gets. So it's almost like trying to acknowledge that, see that for what it is, and undo that. We have to keep practicing not doing that. So are you there still? I don't know if
Yeah.
you've frozen. Oh, you are. Okay, brilliant. I don't know
Um,
if it's my end, darling. Yeah, so I mean, this is so powerful. And so take us back to when you did this breathwork program in London. So you're in working insurance, you did this breathwork program, and you had a calling to go to Brazil.
yeah. The two things were um, happening kind of simultaneously. I did the workshop in the May, and I had signed up for a training. I think it was in the September or October. But earlier on in that year, I'd already been to Brazil. I went in the February, March. And I was already in this transition place of thinking that I needed to leave my job. Um, I think thinking I needed to go and spend some time in Brazil. I wasn't really sure, but that I needed to get out and just completely turn my life on its head and figure out what was next, because it wasn't this thing. And I got to the space in my corporate job where, I had a great job, I had amazing people that I worked with, but I just knew that I didn't want to be sat and sending emails. And I'd fallen a little bit out with capitalist culture at that point in time, just internally, it
Mm.
wasn't sitting right with me. And so I'd also, yeah, I'd been to Brazil. I had this feeling of like, I need to just completely radically shift my environment. And I also was part of what would you call it? Like a business accelerator or like an entrepreneurial accelerator group of people
Yep.
called Escape the City, which is still in existence. It was at the formation stages then, and I was part of a group that were corporate, people in corporate jobs looking to do something different. And so I had this kind of support of other people in my network. Well, they were new to my network. I didn't really have anybody in my network that was having those same thoughts at that point in time, which is like, yeah, 6.5, 7 years ago now. So I really tapped into the energy of that as well. So people looking to do something different, looking to break away from corporate, maybe set up their own startup, etc., etc. So it's a combination of things with that, having an interest in the breath work, and also, yeah, just feeling like I needed complete change of scenery. That then led me, when I did decide to quit, to actually my old colleagues were talking with me and having conversations about whether I wanted a job in Brazil, whether I wanted an insurance job in Brazil. And so I knew that I
Oh,
really
really?
yeah, like two different companies were like, oh, we have jobs, or we have offices, or we have this, that, and the other. Yeah, I had some very, very funny and ridiculous manifestation stories around that at that particular
Amazing.
time. I ended up having this interview when I went to Sao Paulo for a job that didn't even exist yet. They'd put me in touch. Long story. We won't go into that now, but they put me in
Yeah.
touch with these
I was
people.
going to say, you have to share that with me at some point, though, because
Yeah,
I've not heard that. Yeah.
and I remember going, and I was on the 14th floor of this big boardroom as the sun was going down. I was in Sao Paulo and sitting there with this interview meeting for a job that didn't exist yet, that I might, potentially be a fit for. It was the most bizarre thing, but anyway, I didn't go down that route because I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed to step away from everything to get perspective and work out what the next thing really was. And so there was actually, when I did my training, and that was 2014, which sounds like a long time ago now. When I did the first part of my breathwork training, this seminar equivalent, I was actually thinking of doing the next part in, I think it was Switzerland at the time, and that didn't go ahead. And then somebody had said to me, well, you could go to the US. And I was already quitting my job, so I was like, yeah, I could go to the US. And it was never, when I did the training, there was never, I don't remember a feeling where I'm like, I've got to share this to the whole world. It was more, this is really for me, and I'm really interested in it, and it's really powerful. And yeah, I'd love to do the training, but it wasn't this real, I don't remember anyway, I don't recall it being this like real drive of like, I've got to tell everybody about this. It was more about me and my own healing journey. Oh, hello,
Yeah.
my brother's arrived. Hello, Lewis.
Yeah, I just saw that.
It was more about my own, journey. And then as I then went and did the training, it got more into, okay, helping other people, because as you know, that's what happens when you then become a breathwork facilitator. But it was more
Right.
part of the journey than the actual destination, actually, if I think about
Yeah,
it.
but you did mention there as well, just how you would starting to trust that and just be open, because if you were thinking of going to do your training somewhere and that wasn't working, someone mentioned, America, and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe. And that's trusting and being open to saying, okay, that's where I need to go, and this is where it's going to continue, rather than having something set in your mind again, this is where it needs to happen or how I need to do it. So, it's almost like you're saying you're a lot more in flow when you're being guided, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will resonate when I say that for many years I was kind of a perfectionist control freak to some degree. Perhaps not perhaps not outwardly. Yeah, let me resonate with this. Perhaps not outwardly to people, but in an inward sense of needing to have things in a certain way and feeling uncomfortable with change, and yeah, those kinds of things were quite prevalent for me for a period of time in my life. And it was really when that my quarter life crisis hit, that I didn't have any control over that. Like the emotions were out of the bag and they weren't going back in, and I had no control over it. So it was at that point when I really had to relinquish like this tight grip on my reality as it was, because my reality just got washed away like a sandcastle, with the waves coming, and I just had to deal with it. I had no choice. I was just overwhelmed with it all, and I just had to let it wash everything away. And that's what I was saying at the beginning also, is we don't need to get into the position where life has to do that to us. We can also make a conscious choice to start, turning the ship, or to start deconstructing that sandcastle of all of the crap that we've built up, and all of the limitations that we might have built up, all of the hurt of the past that's built up. We can start deconstructing that ourselves before life, because inevitably it is going to happen at some point, or you will become so numb that you can't feel anything. Right? It's one or the other. It's like you're going to build up so much stuff that life is going to force you to crack open, and that's going to be a really painful experience. Or on the flip side, you don't deal with any of it, and you're just going to become more and more and more disconnected and kind of isolated from the joy of life. And so, but once I'd been cracked open, I think I just had to learn to trust. There was no choice but to learn to trust at that point in time, because I had no ground. I was with the river. I was in the middle of the river, and there was no stopping the river at that point in time.
I love that. I love that. I love that, because that's the complete opposite of what you would describe yourself as just before that, right? Someone that needs to be in control and perfectionist. It's like, oh, this is actually the polar opposite of that, but you just remained in that trusting, which is incredible. So tell us more about what happened then when you did your training.
What happened when I did
Or
my
after your
training?
training.
Yeah, so I did my training in the US, as you know, in California, a couple of months apart, and I quit my job at the end of 2014. And I did the first part of the training at the beginning of 15, and then April of 15. And I also combined that with some time in the US and road tripping. But the funny thing was, and I come back to this now with some of the other work that I'm doing of going back into the corporate space, was I was sat on a plane going out to my second training, which was at Lake Tahoe. And I was going to the US for about 6 weeks. I think I was going to do a road trip. And then I was going to Brazil. So I had this intention to go to Brazil. And as you know, the project was Social Starters. I was going to do this social enterprise project. And so I was sat on the plane going to Los Angeles. And I was on the runway, we were about to take off. And I was going away for 4 months. Going to be the longest period of time I've been on traveling, the longest period of time I've traveled on my own. I never had a gap year, any of that stuff. And I was sat on the plane, and I just got this really direct insight. It was almost as if somebody was speaking in my ear. And the message was, Philippa, you didn't need to leave your job to make the difference you want to make in the world. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this story.
Wow. So you've told me that before. I didn't realize you got that insight at that point. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I sat on the plane and, okay, just about to take off for Los Angeles. Like I was a bit confused at that point in time, because I had just quit my, very well paid job 4 months before. I'd pretty much packed everything up into 1 or 2 suitcases, and I was embarking on a journey on the other side of the world. And that was a bit of a confusing message to receive at the time. And then I asked...
Literally when you're sitting on a plane about to take off on this next adventure, yeah.
It's like, oh, the universe, you are so funny. Yeah, very well done. And I said, well, what is this about? And it said, well, writing this book. And I said, okay. And I just got the computer out. And at the time, I was having this big contemplation about our relationship to work. and particularly hard work, and the work ethic that we've adopted as culturally as, you know, working all hours of the sun. If you're not, it's really around the doing culture. And I ended up writing some pages of this book, and it never got finished. But that was always in my mind whenever I went and whatever I was doing, really, there was in the back of my mind, you don't need to leave your job to make the difference you want to make in the world. So that was in between my breathwork training. And as I, you know, come back full circle, nearly 6 years after I got that message, I'm now, you know, some of the other things that I'm about to bring to life in the world are related very much to that, about bringing my skill set and my perspectives and my relationships and my networks back into a different space, like from a holistic point of view, knowing what I know of the insurance industry and the intersection with well-being and health. So I think that's a roundabout way of saying we don't know how our journey is going to unfold, and the things that we learn along the way have sometimes a direct correlation or a different correlation to what we think they will have at the outcome, like in the end. Like, I didn't ever expect to be, you know, bringing things to the insurance industry as an example. I thought my days in that segment, in that sector, were long gone, but actually, no. You know, the universe has completely different plans for me and for that.
And that makes me think of divine timing as well. It's like, you know, since you had that initial like message or, you know, insight to this moment, like the amount of growth and expansion and experience that you've had to now add to that, it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't necessarily have to take the direction you think at the time. It could just, like, it's not linear. It's going to be going whichever way it needs to get to that point, all in divine timing, right? So that's incredible. Now, I'm just really aware of time because I don't know if this cuts off after an hour or not. But what I really want everyone, does it carry on going? If that's fine, because I just want to make sure that everyone knows what you're up to now and what you're doing now as well. So
I don't even know what the time is. I could just talk for hours.
I know, darling. It's so nice.
It.
No, it's so nice. I love it. But yeah, so I just really want everyone to hear like what you're up to now, because once you completed your training, that's when you moved to Brazil the same time I did. Yeah, because you were running workshops then. That's right.
Yeah.
And what was it that was fueling you? Because I know that you've talked about you want to help people, and you know, that message came to you quite early on. That's why you started to explore it. And then when you found breath work, you felt a calling to go to Brazil. And I'm so grateful for that calling, because that's how I connected with you and found breath work. So thank you for listening to that. So just what was going on for you through that process? Were you always sure, or was it just you were being guided and you just knew that's where you had to be at the time? And then
yeah, with Brazil, there was just, yeah, it was energetically, it was somewhere I knew I needed to be. It was such an what's the word? It was the antithesis of British conditioning and culture, where everything is so much more cold and rigid and repressive and indirect and just very, very closed, I think, in a way, and conservative. And as you know, the culture in Brazil is the opposite of all of those things. It's very loud, it's very brash, it's very colourful, it's very exuberant. There's music, there's dancing. You know, it's a very sensual culture. It's a very expressive culture. And so I knew that part of the reason that I was called to be there was really to undo a lot of the conditioning and society, you know, the limitations that I felt I didn't necessarily know I had, but at some level I felt. And so I think that's what drew me to Brazil, because it was the polar opposite of what I was used to. And in that experience would be another form of expansion in addition to the breath work, and that kind of healing and evolution would also be living in a culture, learning a new language, because I think particularly as British people, we're usually pretty bad at learning foreign languages. and I wanted to challenge myself to, to live in a different culture, to learn a different culture, and speak a different language, which I did relatively successfully. I can still speak some Portuguese, so that, and the heat, the different climate, the warmer climate, the tropical climate, as you know,
I hear
is
you for all of this. Yep.
it's a little bit more exciting. I mean, the weather in the UK now has turned it up, but I've never been a big fan of winters, so I think escaping to a hot tropical climate for the winter as well was really on a plus. And there was a part of me, I'd always wanted to go to Brazil. For a long, long time, I think I'd seen a movie right back at university, which was City of God, Cidade de Deus, which is what it is in Portuguese. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I watched it when I was out there actually, because I hadn't watched it before then.
So
Yeah.
here's a little synchronicity that happened. That movie, I must have watched when I was 21 or something like that, which is a few years ago now. And it was so emotionally moving for me. And part of seeing that movie, I think I felt the call to go to Brazil even back then. And when I was applying to do this social project, the social starters project, if anybody's interested in doing, a social project in Brazil, maybe check out social starters.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, because it's an amazing, amazing organization.
And the one that connected us actually.
Yeah, the one that connected us.
Yeah.
When when I was going through that process and I went out and I did all of the training, I ended up, and nobody knew that story about me watching that movie, by the way. I ended up, when we had the reveal of the entrepreneurs that we would be working with, in the communities and in the favelas out there, I had a client who was in City of God.
Oh, I didn't know this, Bill. I didn't know this at all.
Yeah, it was
Oh, wow.
and my client was there, and they were organizing poetry slams, poetry meetup. And so I got to go to one of these meetups. I actually got to go twice there, and it was quite an extraordinary experience. So to watch this, movie 15 years prior or whatever it was, and then to actually be matched with this area, people in this area, and actually go there, was quite an extraordinary experience. It was an emotional experience as well. So, and to be
Yeah.
able to give, my skills and help there with what they were doing was really, really amazing.
So can I just at that point say, when you talk about knowing that you need to help people, knowing that you need to, serve in some way, having watched that and felt that, like when you were 21, to then getting yourself to Brazil by following your own inner knowing and guidance, you end up helping the people that are actually so directly related to that
Yeah, it's
film.
crazy.
Yeah. Is it crazy? Is it crazy? Or were you just guided because that's where you needed to be? And it's like
Yeah,
sometimes you can have an activation, can't you? And you're like, you see something, you hear something, you meet someone, you do something, and it's like an activation of something that's lying dormant within you. And it's almost like that's what I'm sensing from you, what you talk about. You had this knowing and something activated it, and you followed it all the way out to Brazil and beyond, because you're still following it now, which is incredible. But I just wanted to, pick up on that, because that's what I was just like, it's amazing. And, yeah, it is. I don't know if I believe in coincidences. It's, things happen as they happen, but
law
incredible.
of attraction. I think we create our own luck, in the sense of, my strong belief is that the circumstances of our lives, we do create. We co-create with those around us. We co-create with the creator of all, I believe. And we co-create internally with our own desires and intentions. And so, while we do have a pure, heartfelt desire for something, the chances of it coming real are 100% if we get out of the way and remove those blocks to that thing, right?
Yes, true. If you get out of the way and remove the blocks, yes.
Right there. And that's what I want to say, really, is my intuition, I guess, was relatively strong. I'd learned to trust it over a period of time. But the more we work with something like the breath, the more we work with our body, the more we trust our intuition, the more we trust our intuition, right? So even after that, I was always tuned into what's the next thing, what am I here to do? And that's how the seminar arose. I'll maybe just tell a little example of that, yeah, which was in a breathwork session,
yeah,
came to me that, oh well, I should organize a breathwork seminar. Yeah. And I wasn't in a position where I could really do that. I couldn't do the training. I wasn't, qualified enough to lead a training or anything like that. But I started I took that message, I guess you could call it, or intuition. And then I just started to think about how would I do that? And would I like to bring this to Brazil? And the answer was yeah. And so then I started having some conversations with one of the trainers who Eugenia, and things just started falling into place. I found a venue that was an hour and a half outside of Rio called Sinal do Vale, Signal of the Valley. And that started a conversation. I started speaking to other people about whether they would like to come and facilitate, and other people that would like to be involved. And before I knew it, we had 13 participants, I think it was, and 20 people in total, 7 staff.
You flew from all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, from the UK, from Mexico, I think that was the majority, but my mum coming to participate and you coming to participate, and we were in the jungle, and we're in the middle of this amazing retreat center, living in the middle of the jungle with amazing locally grown organic food, and just this amazing transformational experience with a cachoeira, which is a waterfall for a swimming pool. And yeah, exactly. So
I'm literally getting emotional listening to you talk about this place. It was beautiful. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, me too, because I haven't really, part of when I create things so quickly, I often don't give myself an opportunity to actually fully feel them and give reverence to what I've created. And that was, if I think back now, and that's 4.5 years ago now, I think that was such a magical experience. It really, really was it was such a transformational experience for everybody that came, and myself included, as a host of that event. And this is what happens when we follow these signs and signals. We're saying that A plus B equals C. Well, no, it doesn't. Getting from A to B is going to include way more people and stop points and distractions and diversions than you think. And actually, it's not a linear straight line. Like that, creating that event was not a linear straight line. I then went on to, I think we had 2 of you. 3 people went on from that event to train as breathwork facilitators, including you, as you know.
Yeah.
And 2 people from that event, and then 1 person from another event. But
no more. It was 3.
Was it 3?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Sophie, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was.
So and then I did an event in Bali, and there's been another couple of people that have gone on from that event in Bali to become breathwork facilitators as well. So part of my brain, just forgets what happened at some point. But that was following this flow, and trusting that step by step, I will be led and guided with the right support to create these experiences, which is exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And the more we lean in, the more we work with our body, the more we work with our breath, we get access to this intuition. The more we clear out our emotional crap, right? The past, all of this dissonant energy that we're carrying and we're holding, and these limitations of our mind as well as our body, the more access we get to that deep inner knowing, the intuition that does know, that is the true us, not the fake, not the fake and facade version that we show to the world, not the mask that we show to the world as who I should be, and I should be a doctor or a successful insurance person in my example, or you know, with all of these letters after my name and look a certain way and be a certain way and go to certain dinners. No, that's not the real me. The real me is who you see sat here now. The real me organised a seminar in Brazil not knowing what the hell they were doing. The real me lived in a psychedelic retreat centre teaching breathwork because that was where I was guided and ended up. You know, this is a little bit later down the track, but the real me knew that I needed to walk away from all of that again 2 years ago to come back to the UK, not knowing what was next other than my family here. The real me at the beginning of the pandemic went, okay, I'm moving all of my work online because it's going to be just as effective, you know, and then trusting that. And the real me right now is going, okay, now is the time for breath work and for my world around stress and negligence and the insurance market to come together and do something different. And again, I don't know what that holds. Like, that's a new paradigm. This is a complete unknown, and it makes me feel very, very uncomfortable because I want to reach for that comfort blanket of trust, right? And certainty and knowing and getting it right and not looking stupid and not making a fool of myself and all of that. And if I hold on to that comfort blanket, the impact that I want to make is not going to happen because I'm going to live in fear. So when we can move past that fear, which which is a big thing for me, which breathwork does, it allows us to feel into whatever is there, whatever the resistance is that's in the way between us and our real self. Like, that for me is what breathwork helps us get access to and resolve, so that we can really know who we are and we can really bring that into the world.
100%. Hallelujah. Feel that fear and do it. And I love what you said about, like, how can you continue to impact these people, because that's exactly what you've done. Like, you've impacted so many lives. You know, me, I'm just one, but you've impacted so many lives from that initial something's not right, I'm going to start exploring this, to going to that breathwork class, to doing the training, to following your guidance, to ending up in Brazil, to then going to the retreat center. Even at the retreat center, we haven't even spoken about that, in Holland. And all of these lives that you've impacted because you've just followed that and stepped out of that fear. You know, rewind 7 years, you're talking about Philippa, who likes to be in control and have everything perfect. It's like, you're just listening to what's got to happen and you're feeling into it and taking action. Like, you're taking action, like listening to you talk about how you put that seminar together in Brazil. I just love that, because it's like you had this, you created that space and people came, like, you made it happen. It was just incredible. So you've done many things like that. I just wanted to say, yeah, it's awesome and I love it. And yay.
I'll just add something on as well, which is, you know, for people that are listening or watching this that feel like, oh my God, I should make a drastic change. That was necessary for me. It's not necessary for everybody. And in fact, for some people, it can be quite scary. Doesn't mean to say you shouldn't do it, but for some people, it can actually be quite detrimental. And so that message for me really on the plane that time of, you don't need to leave your job to make the difference you want to make in the world, was bringing me back really to the knowing that wherever I go, you know, I can bring my skills and tools and my presence to make a difference. And so we can also think about it in that way. It's like, if you were in your job or your role, and this is really where I'm stepping into now, is more in the leadership space, if you're really showing up as you at work, like, what would that look like? What would you be doing differently? How would you bring yourself to work? How can you bring your whole self to work? How can you bring your kind of values and morals and the things that you believe in outside of your workplace into what you're doing for 8 hours a day, or, you know, however long you're working, and bring that to your team and your colleagues and the organization that you're working for? And we don't have to step out of the system to change the system. In fact, we need to be part of and within the system to change the system, particularly those things that are dysfunctional. And we need to be thinking and looking at things in different ways. And as you know, one of my, you know, tagline, strap lines is around breathe the change you wish to see in the world. It's not finger pointing at somebody else is going to do it. It's, okay, the buck stops with you. What are you going to do, I'm not saying that I'm single-handedly going to change the world, but if I decide it's somebody else's job, then where's my self-responsibility? What action am I taking in my little corner of the planet? You know, I'm just here in Essex, outside of London. What am I doing here, like in the local community, for example? This is something I'm looking at right now. It's like, how do I bring what I do to this part of the world where I grew up, you know, where I have a lot of resistance to doing that, rightly, you know, rightly or wrongly. So it starts with us, it starts where we are. So even if you're not wanting to make or feeling you need to make a big leap, you can take that step, right? You can take that one step outside of your comfort zone. And for some people, that might be doing a breathwork session, right? For other people, it might be asking for a promotion. For other people, it might be looking for a different job. For other people, it might be having an emotional conversation with their spouse or their partner or their parents about something that needs to be resolved, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be the big change, it's the small ones. You know, even from how you might respond to a situation or, you know, something that's happening, you know, you can take a moment and choose how you respond to that. And that will impact those people around you. You know, it's just taking small actions around you to impact. Agreed, agreed. Whatever that looks like for you, and tuning in and listening to what that looks like for you. Yeah, it might even be starting your day with a different routine, anything at all.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. So Phil, tell us what you're up to now. Tell us what you're doing, and you know, if there's anyone that's watching that would like to reach out to you as well, how can they reach out to you? Is there anything that you're offering, working with people one to one, anything coming up, or anything at all you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. A couple of things. Um, Firstly, it's going to sound really random, but I'm actually just about to take a month off. So
Good
from the
for
middle of
you.
June to the middle of July, I'm going to be largely off, because that again is another thing for me to really completely reset. What I will be offering in the meantime, though, and I don't have the start date for this yet, but sometime mid-July onwards, I'll be offering a breathwork detox program,
Mm.
which is going to be a group program. I am also have some really limited space for one-to-one clients, which is typically a 3-month journey that I take people on, which is a combination of breathwork and kinesiology clearing. And that's really for who I love working with, like heart-based, heart-centered entrepreneurs that are here to make, you know, a bigger impact, a bigger income, a bigger difference. And it's really about helping them get all of their potential, you know, limiting beliefs and blockers, their unresolved issues from the past out of the way so they can really tune into this intuition that we're talking about, so that they can really lean in and be able to trust themselves. And once we do that, like, you know, the sky's the limit in terms of making more impact. So that's something that one-to-one I love to do, really love working with people. So if anybody wants to reach out to me about that. And then the other thing, I guess, is the new adventure, which is a more of a corporate commercial type scenario, which is the connection between stress and negligence, that I'm currently writing a book on called Blame, Shame and Negligence Claims. And really what we have is a
What a title,
framework
by the way. Sorry.
that really, we have a framework that seeks to address stress at the outset in our working practices, rather than dealing with stress as a result, an inevitable consequence of our corporate life or our businesses, looking at what creates it in the first place and how can we actually mitigate it from the outset. And so, as I said, I have a framework that's been in development for a number of years, and we're now looking to bring that to market. So anybody that's interested in that, particularly working with gaining support from the insurance sector, professional bodies, organisations that might be interested in running pilots of this framework, I would love to hear from anybody that, you know, is here to make a bigger impact, make a bigger difference in the world in that regard. So a few different things. If any of this resonates, just kind of reach out, find me, let's have a conversation and see what happens. See what
Yeah,
happens.
that's it. And that's taking a small step, having that conversation, right? Let's explore. See what happens. Amazing, amazing. I just love it. I feel like there's so much we haven't covered yet because you did a stint in Australia after I met you. You've trained in spiral. You've done the Dean Martini methods. Like you are a woman of many, many talents. It's incredible. So anyone that's watching this and wants to connect with Philippa, I will put your Instagram handle in the comments. Is it Philippa Wilkin?
Yeah.
Or yeah. So Philippa Wilkin, and just reach out. And if you're a little bit curious, you want to connect, you want to know more, then do, because you are impacting so many people, and you've had a massive impact on me as well. And I've loved ever since we connected and I did the breathwork journey. We've remained close friends, and it's been quite a ride, hasn't it? We've
Certainly has been.
We've been on that roller coaster for a while, and we will keep on riding.
We got some stories to tell.
I feel like we could have our own podcast, just like a different story per episode, Phil. It's like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I ended up here.
Definitely, we could do a few of those. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
I just want
know.
to say thank you for having me on, because I forget how much, sometimes you forget what you've done.
Yeah,
So it's great to be able to kind of share it in a new way,
yeah,
and hopefully inspire some people to take the plunge and really just be intrigued or interested about what breathwork is and what
yeah,
it might be able to do for you, right? It might take you to Brazil, it might take you to Spain, it might take you to, who knows? It might take you
yeah,
to the middle of the field, as
yeah.
we've done that as well. We've done breathwork at festivals and all that.
Exactly right, exactly right. And also, it could help you improve relationships. It could help you just be happier in your day-to-day life. And when I talk about being happier, it's like getting rid of that noise in your head, getting rid of those emotions that we store in our body, like Philippa was talking about at the start. It's like just having a good old clear out, just starting somewhere. So be curious, give it a try. And Philippa, I'm going to ask you, I didn't ask you before, you haven't prepped, but what would you say that what is the thing that breathwork has really done for you?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. I should have told you I'd ask you this at the end, but it's just good to hear. What is it
Yeah.
that you would say breathwork has really done for you?
The thing that immediately popped up when you asked that was to be a to be a whole person,
Mm, I love that.
and to accept myself as a whole person. I think part of what we have as a human challenge is that we have so many aspects of ourselves that we reject or deny and disown, particularly the vulnerable parts, or the parts that we perceive as weak or bad or shameful. And we might have had some of those experiences in the past, but that doesn't mean we are our experiences. So breathwork has given me freedom, to really be myself, and be good with that, be happy about being myself, rather than mold or shift or change myself into what I think I should be or what other people expect me to be. Actually, to know who I am and live it.
Mm, that's amazing. And I really feel that from you. And I see that in you as well. I mean, like, I'm so grateful that we've known each other for as long as we have now, and it's just I see that in you, and you live and breathe that every day, my darling. You really do. So thank you so much for being you. Thank you so much for giving us your time and coming on.
Thank
So
you.
we've had
Pleasure.
a few people popping in and out live. So if anyone's still there, still say hi. If you're watching on the replay, just drop any comments or any, thoughts below. We'll definitely get back to you. Reach out to Philippa if you'd like to know more. Reach out to me if you'd like to know more. And if you're yet to try breath work and you're still curious, then just give it a go. Start with the small steps and see where it goes. Start with the small steps. So is there anything else that you would like to add, Phil?
I was going to ask you, what has breathwork given you?
Oh, for me, it's been, I don't even know where to start. I think it's brought me back to self, is what I'd really say. It's allowed me, it's not dissimilar to you being your whole self, but for me, it's allowed me to really reconnect with who I am. I think for many, many years, I was lost without realizing I was lost. I was just, was on cruise control. That's what I would say. I was on cruise control probably my entire life, just going, okay, I'll go here, I'll go here. And then I had to talk about the trauma with my dad and how that happened. And so playing out that trauma response and living very, I don't know the word, recklessly, just, you know, living life to its extreme. And so floating through life, going chasing butterflies, someone said to me once. It's like, where's the butterfly going now, Jess? Because I was just like here, 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 everywhere. So not at all in my body, not at all here, not at all living life, just in my head. And what breathwork has allowed me to do is clear out the stuff that was keeping me in my head and allow me to drop back into my body, allow me to feel aligned to self, to, you know, be more confident in who I am. And like you said as well, you know, it's that self-love, like actually accept myself and love myself as I am, and, you know, not worry about what other people are thinking and comparing myself and stuff. So it's a constant journey, don't get me wrong, because the biggest things it's allowed me to do is drop back into myself. And I'll say that, you know, the way I react to situations now has completely shifted, because before, if something happened, I'd be like, well, it's gonna end, I can't believe this has happened, I have to change. Now I'm like, oh, that's interesting, what do we do about that? You know, can't control it, not going to stress. So that's probably one of the biggest things I've noticed. But I still do get triggered. I still do have days when I'm like, what is going on? But now I see it for what it is, and I can work through it. And I know I've got the tools to do that. And it's that, you know, it's almost like coming back to self quicker. If you're triggered by something, you can see it and come back to yourself quicker. And that's the mastery of it, isn't it? It's just continuing. And it is a daily practice. And I've noticed that because there's periods of times I haven't practiced on a regular basis, like daily. And I notice things aren't flowing in my life. And I'm like, why is this not working? Why is nothing working? Why do I can't think and da da da? I'm like, oh, I haven't done my breath work for a few weeks. So it is really, it speaks for itself. And that's why we will all say, just try it. It's literally just try it, if you're a little bit curious, and see where it takes you. And it might be that you need to go on a shorter breathwork journey than some people decide to breathe for a few months, you know, with a practitioner or go to workshops. Some people decide to transform their lives and they do it on a daily basis. So just allow yourself to, like you've done, Philippa, like we've all done, is be guided and listen and trust and explore. So there you go. Thanks for asking me that question. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who joined us live. Thank you for anyone that's watching on the replay. Like I said, comment below. We will definitely get back to you, and get in touch if you've got questions or you'd like to know more. I'm going to continue this breathwork series. Next week, I am going to have the wonderful Elif Clarke, who is actually someone who Philippa knows very well, because Elif staffed at this seminar that Philippa organised in Brazil. So she is one of the first facilitators that I worked with as well. So she's based in London. Actually, now she's in the US, but she will tell us all about that next week. So do tune in and join us next Sunday at 6 p.m. to hear from Elif. And yeah, so much love to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Bye.